Hi, I'm Erin. I'm APMP's content manager, and you're watching On the Record with APMP. I'm joined today by Bruce Morton, who is a capture director, and he's going to be talking to us today about scoring proposals through the eyes of the evaluator. Nice to have you here, Bruce.
Thank you. I like to say you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand this, but I happen to be one. And what I want to point out is that most proposals have a major issue. The way we write them up is we look at our win themes, our discriminators, we put in some graphics and text, and then price, and then we submit it and hope for the best. Then the evaluation comes out as we win or lose, and the evaluation debriefing we get from the customer talks about strengths, significant strengths, weaknesses, significant weaknesses, deficiencies, risks, and price. And none of those are the same as what I just said we submit. And that bothers me because we're depending on the brilliance and I'll call it the motivation of the evaluator to make these connections. And I'd like to make them for the evaluator so that I don't have to depend upon the evaluator to do all this stuff.
Right.
So there's some ways to do that. And I'm going to talk about developing what I call strength-based win themes. And these have all the elements in it that the evaluator has on their evaluation sheet to fill out, but I'm doing it for that person to help them out. And you can't call it a strength because that insults the evaluator because it isn't always a strength, but these are all the elements they need. And it's not easy to put this together. This is not something you do in a 1-hour meeting or with someone on the back of an envelope, or I need these tomorrow. It takes a team working on these. And what I do for each requirement from the customer, which is usually in Section M. I'm talking about U.S. government proposals. Section M is evaluation criteria, or the equivalent, depending on how they write it. Their evaluation criteria. For every one of those criteria, I want to write down what a bunch of things I'll tell you in a minute. My point is that this takes a team, and it's usually not one person who does the whole thing. Some of it has to be done by maybe the program manager of some similar program, some of it by the technical person, and then I take all this and put it together, and out of this mishmash of stuff, which is not written to be nice and smooth, I can write a nice sentence or two that is a strengths-based win theme. And I like to get these done that way. And when I win a proposal, let's put it this way, I've never seen a proposal lost debriefing or win debriefing that said, let's say it's a win debriefing, you had the best win themes of any competitor I've ever seen. They don't talk that way, but yet we focus on that. And then I'm also going to say that when I do a red team review prior to turning in the proposal, I like to tell the evaluators on the red team, when you look at what the writers wrote here, you're going to evaluate it for strengths and weaknesses and the same things I just mentioned that the evaluator does per the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations. And sometimes it's a shock to the writer who writes a really good thing, but it comes back a deficiency because they didn't answer all the 5 elements of a strength-based win statement. I usually have grief counselors available in the lobby to console members of the red team who get pretty upset sometimes, but I'd rather do it ahead of the real evaluation and get it all fixed up so it comes out right.
Yeah. We've spoken a little bit before about this and about turning these strengths from the eyes of the evaluator into a proposal. And you brought up to me this tool you use, this table you use. Can you maybe give a little bit more detail about that?
Sure. What I do is I make a PowerPoint chart, and on there I have the 5 elements you need in a strength-based win theme, and in the rows I put each requirement down, and of course this may take many pages because everything isn't nice to fit in one line on a PowerPoint chart, but that's what I use to do this. The 5 elements, if you will, I start out by putting my own column, which is the title. Let's say the title is cloud requirement, because there's a cloud requirement. Then I say, first column, what is the customer requirement per the reference point? And usually it's Section M or the performance work statement, paragraph number. So first is, what is the requirement? Second is, what are we proposing? Mm-hmm. And the third is, how does what we're proposing meet or exceed the requirement? The fourth is, what is the benefit to the customer of what we're proposing? For instance, it lets them meet their schedule with low risk, or they're whatever the benefit is. And the fifth column, which is the toughest one, everyone has problems with it, it's not fast to do, is what's the evidence externally that we actually do this other than us blabbing on about how wonderful we are. And evidence could be a CPARS, which is a government evaluation they do every year of your contract, some excerpt from a CPARS that says you guys were wonderful here. It could be a letter of commendation from the general who said, wow, your team really excelled. It could be a comment that Colonel made at a luncheon, said, you guys really nailed this. And if you don't have any of those, it could still be something from, we won the last 5 recompetes for similar type contracts. That's external to your own people saying this. It's what's the evidence? And I've spent a lot of time on groups, my own groups teams that say, we don't have any evidence. I said, right, you are really good at this and you have no evidence from anyone that says this except you. I don't believe it. And we work that. So what I do is, for instance, if that was on the spreadsheet, the row of items we put, I will then make a sentence or two that's really smooth and nice that gets that across in a proposal. And then the evaluator can look at that and go, oh, this is easy. This fits in this column, this here. Wow, these guys, their strengths are impressive. Good, you get a strength, or etc.
Yeah, well, you said something there about you've made it really easy for the evaluator, and I think that's something really important here.
Yeah, and why is it important? Because when you get your debriefing, if you've got a lot of strengths, that usually puts you ahead of a competitor who doesn't have as many. Then when they look at price, there's a little more they can give you, even if you're more expensive, because you have all those strengths. There's limits to how much more they could do. Just like when you go to buy a new car and the salesman says, I can add all these other features for another $800. You go, yeah, do it. But if he said, I can add all these same other features for $8,000, you go, you know what? I can do without those features. So the customer source selection authority is the same. You can pay a little more. Or if you're tied, then this extra strengths make a difference. So I like being told by competitors, we almost beat you. You just had a few more strengths than we did. That's not an accident. That's on purpose. That's why you win.
Yeah, that's a wild thing to say. We all would have beat you if you weren't better than us, basically.
Well, yeah, but they don't understand that. We came close. I like it when competitors are proud that they came in number 2. They almost won, as long as I'm the team that won. I like that.
Oh, nice. Great. Well, you mentioned that evidence is something that people really struggle with. Can you give some deeper examples of evidence?
Sure. You're a TV moderator here. Why are you so wonderful? Other than you thinking you are, what accolades have you gotten from APMP or people you interviewed that said you were a great interviewer that you could use as a quote? That's an example of evidence other than your own opinion. And so I'm asking you, do you have one off the cuff? Maybe not.
I mean, the first time I did this was yesterday, but Rick did shout me out on the stage at BPC Nashville, so...
Okay, good. So you have
that.
Evidence. If Rick hadn't said that, you'd say, geez, I did pretty good. Everyone was smiling, everyone was happy, but I don't know what to write. So it's not easy to write down evidence, and sometimes you don't realize evidence is evidence.
Yeah.
So I help coach people to think of evidence. But my point is, if you're the technical person and you're meeting, for instance, this cloud requirement, and you're writing why we beat the requirement and why it has benefits, and I say, what evidence? Well, that may be the program manager on another program who did 5 of the similar clouds and got great accolades. We can put that in the proposal, but that you wouldn't know that necessarily as the technical guy. So I sometimes act as the facilitator to help you figure out the technical guy knows that we're really good at it. Why? Who outside of your manager says we're really good? It might be the program office that needs to come in and do that. Sometimes I've actually asked teams, the program team, look, next time you're with the colonel who you say loves you, can you ask him, why do you love us? My boss wants to know, and I'll use that as a quote. Just sometimes you can go get the evidence if you don't have it. So it's not easy, is my point. It's not something that you just say, oh yeah, all right, I did the evidence column, that was easy. No, that's really tough.
So if you're trying to get behind the eyes of the evaluator and you've never done it before, is there anything that you would want the viewers at home to take away if they don't take anything else away from what you've just said?
Yeah, the point is that I just mentioned 5 elements that the evaluator looks at, because they have an evaluation sheet. They don't make this up. Think, geez, what should I think of? Maybe they have evidence. They have a sheet which says, what's the evidence?
Yeah.
And they fill it out. So knowing what that is, or listening to a person like me, or getting some advisor who can tell you that, is pretty valuable, rather than finding out the hard way, geez, I got a weakness, but I don't know why. I thought we were good at this. And they'll tell you why when they tell you your weakness. I mean, I'll give you an example. I worked with a capture manager. He had to recompete. We were the incumbent. How can you lose? The customer loves us. And he did the proposal and lost. And the debriefing said, your company obviously knows how to do this. However, the RFP said, please explain what you're proposing. And you kept saying, we're going to do the same thing we've been doing without telling us what it is, and we had to give you a deficiency.
Yeah.
And a deficiency and a weakness in the eyes of the customer is always a risk. And the customer is always worried about risk and evaluating risk, whether they ask for you to tell the risk or not. They're always looking for that, and they'll ferret it out of anything you write. So understanding that's kind of important. So for a first time, you just want someone to advise you who has this perception and has done it before, and you can do a lot better.
Okay. So how do you find out your evaluators? Like, you don't get to see
it's worse. You not only can't find out the evaluators, but they're chosen from the workforce of the customer. And if the customer is really busy, your customer is really busy, hot programs, they may pick an evaluator from another group who doesn't even know your company. They don't know you're the incumbent. They don't know much about it, but they come in and they're told, look, you can go back to your day job when you're done. Sit down here. You're going to look at 7 proposals. You're going to fill out this evaluation sheet. Here are the sections they wrote. Fill it out. When you're done, we'll ask you some questions. It may take 2 days. Then you can go back to your real job. Are you happy about this? Some people are. Some people don't like that. So you don't even know if your evaluator even knows what you're doing. So evidence is really important to give that person the comfort that, boy, these guys know what they're doing. I feel comfortable giving them a strength or a significant strength.
Absolutely. And as well as strengths, you touched on risk there. If you're working on creating a proposal that's going to be obviously scored by an evaluator, I guess it's important to look for the risks that your customer might be particularly
afraid of. Yeah, that's tough to do because you're page limited and you're answering questions and you're hard pressed to get all the answers into the pages, and suddenly someone like you or me steps up and says, well, you got to mention risk. But knowing that risk is a big factor, I often take a little section, maybe just a little chart, and put in a risk mitigation chart, even if it's not asked for. You got to know what you're doing or you'll scare them if you don't have a good chart there. But I say the 3 key risks here are, for instance, a long lead item. If you don't order it in advance of the RFP coming out, you can't meet the schedule. So we've advanced ordered it. That's a way of ghosting someone who didn't do that, saying, Mr. Customer, if this competitor did not order it in advance, they can't meet the schedule. You better look at this carefully. We ordered it in advance because we love you and we love your mission and we're dedicated to it. But yes, risk is important to be thinking about, and how to get that into all proposals. Most proposals now are page limited, to a very page limited proposal. But if you don't do it, the customer's still going to worry about that, so you might as well help them a little bit.
Great. Well, do you have anything else you would like to say before we wrap up?
No, just that this isn't easy, and as I said, it takes time. It also takes time to maybe find an advisor to help you, but that's why you do a red team review. And if you do it looking at strengths and weaknesses, they'll pick people out of the organization, and even if you haven't done it before, if you're on a red team, you say, I haven't done this before. I'm going to give you an evaluation sheet. You know, all right, I fill out this. Then you look at what's written. You go, well, they're missing 2 of the 5 elements. You're going to say, I can't give them a strength. I've just told you, as an evaluator, if they're missing 2 of the 5, give them a weakness. So, you know, the point is you can do that, but your red team helps a lot if you do it correctly.
Great.
Anyway, thank you. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you very much.
It's nice to have you here. If you look in front of you, you will see a golden microphone with the On the Record with APMP branding. This is your souvenir to take home for being one of the first guests on our new show.
Well, thank you so much.
I hope that you will put a pride of place on your mantelpiece.
I certainly will.
Great.
Everyone who comes into my office is going to see this and go, wait a minute, are you recording this?
Great. Well,
Thank
that's
you.
the goal.